This year's GDC just wrapped up where the emphasis was on three things: VR, VR, and, well, more VR. And after having gotten a chance to try out all three of the major headsets back to back, the Oculus Rift, PlayStation VR, and HTC Vive, I've drawn some conclusions. First off, the games and demos being shown off and in development appeal to two very different audiences interested in VR. One that's focused on the simulation aspect, trying to create immersive, almost real-feeling worlds for people to interact with at the expense of anything overly gamey, while on the other hand, there's people that want video games in virtual reality. Now, when it comes to the more simulation-y stuff, the Vive is definitely the frontrunner of the three. The emphasis on full-body VR gives the Vive a sense of immersion that you just can't capture with other headsets that have you sit down holding a controller. On the flip side though, the emphasis on having you do the movement yourself within a small area also limits the kind of games and experiences available on it. As an example, the two games I tried were Everest, a mountain climbing game, and Star Wars Trials of Tatooine. Now, Everest was an awesome experience from the viewpoint of being able to look around from the top of a mountain and see your progress across it, but the emphasis of the experience was clearly on just sucking you into this virtual realm and didn't really offer anything that I would call game-like. On the other hand, the Star Wars game was pretty freaking awesome from the standpoint of being inside of Star Wars, seeing the Millennium Falcon fly over your head, but at the same time felt oddly restrictive, boiling the game mechanics down to simply pushing some buttons when told, and then play laser baseball against some stormtroopers since the limited field of movement restricts you from running up to them. Both experiences made for brilliant tech demos, but neither felt like something I'd want to rush out and buy for the game experience alone. Though in all honesty, I might just get Trials of Tatooine because I'm that awful of a Star Wars fan. On the other hand, my experience with both the Oculus and PlayStation VR felt like much more familiar and fully formed game concepts that just had some kind of interesting new twist thanks to VR. I think one of the best comparisons of this was my experience with Crytek's The Climb using the Oculus Rift versus what I did with Everest on the Vive. Once again, Everest was a super cool immersive experience, but you had to take your time with what you're doing, while playing The Climb was a much faster paced game, something akin to Mirror's Edge focused solely on climbing. Yes, it wasn't anywhere near as immersive, but it felt more like something I would want to buy and play, and had gamey aspects that honestly felt almost impossible with the Vive, such as being able to finish a stage within a certain time limit and comparing that to my friends. Now, given, the jump to VR in general, whether seated or standing, does present some questions about what kind of games are exactly feasible. An obvious answer would be anything with a cockpit, whether it's a spaceship, diving vessel, or a mech like in rigs for the PSVR. The thing is though, VR has applications that aren't very obvious to most people when they're applied to current game formulas, and easily the best example of this to me was Chronos from Gunfire Games. Chronos takes the traditional third-person action game as we know it, something along the lines of a child between Dark Souls and Darksiders, but applies the use of VR in an interesting way. The whole game is played with what you might consider fixed camera positions, but ones that you have full 360 control of, so you never have to keep your eyes directly on your character. You're free to look around, explore the backgrounds, take a look at what lies across the bridge, which gives players a new sense of scale that was previously impossible with a regular TV setup. And this is honestly where VR gets me more excited, and why I'm personally looking more forward to the Oculus and PSVR over the Vive. The Vive creates the most lifelike experiences of the three, but it's such a jump forward that there's some between steps I think we're missing for seeing where games can go. I'm not saying the Vive won't have cool and awesome game experiences on it, and honestly it will have the most unique ones, but the focus on full body movement combined with the highest barrier of entry thanks to pricing and spacing needs leads me to think that it's going to have the lowest density of strong games to experience, leaving it something that will appeal mostly to people that are just die-hard fans of VR as tech and the future potential it holds. Meanwhile, the Rift and PSVR are looking to be the first choice for a lot of people. PSVR has the benefit of not only being the cheapest headset to grab by itself, but also cheapest overall if you compare the price of grabbing the headset with a PS4 and camera versus grabbing an Oculus or Vive and building the PC necessary to use them. It does offer the least graphically intense experience of the three, but the gap isn't so large as to make it seem awful in comparison. and when it comes to form factor and comfort, it was easily the best one for me. Oculus, on the other hand, will be a first pick for anyone dedicated to having a gaming PC over a console, and it's not only cheaper than the Vive, but once again is easier to integrate into your desk setup since you can just play seated in your chair rather than having to set up a dedicated room or space to it. All that being said, all three headsets have their strengths, and based on what I've experienced with them, all of them are going to open up new opportunities in gaming that's just going to get cooler as the years go by, and I cannot wait. As always, thank you so much for watching. If you want to show some support, hit that like button and subscribe, and I'll see you guys later.